Welcome to The Whole Pineapple. I'm Ruby Boris.
And I'm Ann Judge. The Whole Pineapple is a podcast about wellness focused around fertility. And on these weekly mini episodes, we bring you bite-sized ideas for you to snack on.
Like breathing exercises, book reviews. Maybe we'll review some scientific research, or we'll share some wellness and fertility stories from our listeners.
So if you're looking for a tip or a trick related to your fertility and well-being, then you've come to the right place.
Let's dig in.
Welcome back to The Whole Pineapple on a very special, both kind of snack edition and book review. I'm going to let Ruby do the main intro for our two very special guests, but I wanted to start with a nice vegetable joke that I just heard today. So, Ruby, did you know that if a parsley farmer doesn't pay taxes, they might garnish his wages?
Oh, no. Did your dad tell you that?
It was on the radio, but I added to my little list of like, ooh, that's a good dad joke. I got to tell that one later. But it seemed appropriate as we're going to be talking about some produce and stuff today.
Yes. And I love a good vegetable joke. So
tell us who we're talking to.
Yeah, I'm so excited about this episode. So we're talking to two people, one of which we have recorded with before, but also we have not recorded with Dr. Angela Thayer, who is a fertility and lifestyle medicine specialist and has taken care of infertility patients holistically, emphasizing nutrition, exercise, stress reduction, and positive personal relationships. She loves sharing her passion for global cuisines, and she's a certified plant-based chef. I don't think I knew that about you. Judy Simon is a registered dietitian and a health educator for over 30 years, has focused her practice on helping women and men choose the best ways to eat to support their reproductive health. And she has also shared her extensive knowledge by teaching graduate students at the University of Washington.
And Judy was also a guest way back in season 1. So yes, welcome to the podcast to both of you.
Thank you. Thank you. It's great to be here.
So tell us what you were here to tell us about.
Oh, gosh. Well, we are here to just share information about our book that's going to be coming out in April of 2024. It's called Getting the Baby, and it's really a food-first plan to help women and men improve their chance of success by improving their fertility through food and exercise and other lifestyle measures, whether they're trying to get pregnant naturally or through IVF or other means.
And I think this is great because Ruby and I, for multiple episodes of the podcast, have talked a lot about nutrition and here and there. And I mean, there's so much out there. You can go down the internet rabbit hole. You can try and dig through scientific studies. But this is really awesome to have this book as a resource. And we got to see an advanced copy. And it's a really nice, understandable, interesting way of kind of summarizing what is out there. So we are super excited and super glad to let you tell us a little more about the details.
I'm really excited about it too, because of course there's a big nutrition component to it as a food-first fertility book, but also it is like holistically lifestyle medicine. So it talks about other things that we know improve our fertility and help just with our life and our overall health, movement, stress, sleep, supplements, avoiding endocrine disruptors, all sorts of things. So there's a lot of good stuff in here.
So tell us where you came up with that phrase of food first, because I think that's an interesting way of like framing the book and being right there. How did you decide to make that be kind of like the key descriptor?
Well, this book has been in the works for a long time.
Yeah.
And Angela and I started the Food for Fertility program with women, over 12 years ago, where we brought, women together and we thought, instead of just telling them, hey, go eat healthy and exercise, we actually did it in the class. They came to the class, they cooked together, they set goals together. And we just started to see phenomenal results. And we were lucky enough to do this classes live until COVID. Then we pivoted into a virtual format. And the women still sort of love the idea that, hey, now I can learn to cook in my kitchen, which was really fun. And, how often do you get the chance to cook with a fertility, reproductive endocrinologist and a dietitian, laugh, have fun in the kitchen, and learn about food for fertility? So it really came from the idea, we thought, we're helping 10 to 15 people at a time. We had so many good stories to share and so many recipes. We thought, let's start off with a cookbook. And then, Angela, what happened? We exploded from the cookbook idea, right?
That's right. That's right. And I mean, I think the idea was, we would always see people in practice who would come in and and ask about supplements. And we're like, okay, supplements are great, fine. But what about food? Like
Yeah.
food is the main source of micronutrients and macronutrients. And so it was like kind of the idea was like food first, supplements second, just kind of rang with me and resonated. And so that kind of carried over from our Food for Fertility class to become the Food First program, that we could really emphasize food as the primary vehicle to help people improve their nutrition and fertility. And then, supplements come later.
I think it's great that you mentioned the classes because I have such memories of that too. Because back when you were doing the classes, I was still part of working in the weekend rotation. And this is a while ago. So I cook a lot more now than I did then. But this is weekend. You get up early, you're covering the OR. And I remember being like in the break room, heating up my like sad lean cuisine and seeing like you guys making your like quinoa bowls and then seeing the whole class going out together and taking that walk around Lake Union, which I think was also huge, having that kind of peer support piece and, getting out there and being active, even if it was raining in Seattle. And, it really was this nice holistic approach. And so I think it's cool to find a way to kind of package that, even though it's a book. So, you're reading it, you have those stories woven throughout of people that had done the classes, what they took from it. Are you planning to have like online groups or any kind of way for people who are reading the book to kind of still connect with each other?
Oh, that's a good question. We're planning on having some pop-up classes in January and the spring, which will definitely get the word out, where folks that are interested in this topic and learning more culinary skills and more about nutrition and fertility, and then we'll kind of take it from there. I have to say the book has been a very big focus for the last 4 years, Angela, that we've been working on. But what's really exciting is since we've, gotten the stories together from the women, we didn't even use all the ones we have, but I think we include like 12 stories. Some of the women have gone on to have their second and third healthy pregnancies in children. And there are women from our first couple classes that still go to birthday parties from their kids. So it's really the legacy goes on. And we're seeing these women have healthy pregnancies and just, it's just like this is like the seed that starts it all. So we're really excited that we'll be able to reach a lot more women when our book comes out.
Yeah, that's such a good point too, that it doesn't stop just with the fertility side of things. It goes into, pregnancy, and then of course, goes into the epigenetics for offspring health and all of that too.
Right, exactly. And I think, the peer support and the fact, so many women dealing with infertility just feel so alone. And I know you all have talked a lot about mental health and things like that on your podcast, which is great. And so I think women need to know that they should really find a support system for themselves. And that might be friends and family. It might be through Resolve or another fertility group, or maybe if they're going to a fertility clinic, maybe their fertility clinic hosts some support groups. So, it is a little harder to recreate some of those support connections virtually versus in person. But I think there's a number of ways to do that. And I think that's a really important focus for women to know. It helps build resilience and other things going through the struggle of infertility.
Well, let's talk about some of the key points in the book. And these are always hard because we want people to read the book. So we're not going to give away everything. But I think this is also so informative for people that want to understand their fertility more. I love how you start off in the early chapter just kind of talking about what are the building blocks to fertility and like what are challenges that can happen. And so this is not just a book of recipes. You started out that, but it really kind of builds that feeling like you understand what's going on and why there is this motivation to think about nutrition. Because if you think about it at that basic level of egg and sperm and fallopian tubal function, like it makes a lot more sense than if you're just handing somebody a recipe. And you do a really great job of summarizing what research is out there. You talked about the thing that Ruby and I have harped on before, like that one small initial PCOS study where they got that magic made up quote of saying lose 5% of your weight and you'll ovulate. I mean, you really kind of like go into the studies for what do we know, what don't we know, and it makes you feel like much more ready to actually then tackle this idea of maybe gently approaching changes.
Something on that line that we really tried to bring out in this book, that we're really focusing on health. Because so many women come to us and they're like, well, I was told to lose weight. What do I have to do to cut everything out? We're like, no, no, no. We don't even want to focus on that. We want to focus on your nutrition and your lifestyle. And yeah, you're probably going to lose visceral fat or have body composition changes that will be helpful. But when the pressure is taken off on the weight, I think that really, really opens the door that like, hey, this is the same advice we would give people of all different body sizes. Those basic nutrition is good for everyone. And I think that's really helpful. And we just have better data and we know more. So we really want to try to make it very, very open to everyone, that it feels very inclusive.
Yeah, there's definitely no shame, blame, or guilt here, which is lovely.
You even got our favorite quote about progress, not perfection. So it's perfect.
That's right. That's right.
Did you see my other favorite part, Anne? It was at the top of chapter 1. It was the true false question.
Oh, I did. I like that they start with the true false questions. I think I had a few I missed, but I was pretty right. You probably got them all.
Yeah.
What was that one?
True false, does eating pineapple help women conceive?
Which it does, just like all the other fruits and vegetables, right? I think the interesting thing that we really also, love to talk to women about and people is just, there's really no, off-limit foods, and we don't want people to be restricting. But what we do want is to make sure they're getting the nutrients. And what happens sometimes is if people just get busy and distracted, they eat what's convenient, what's easy, what's inexpensive. And, cooking real food and whole foods and plants and other things takes time, and you have to have some skills. And so if you haven't grown up cooking or you didn't learn to cook as a young adult, you might not feel as comfortable in the kitchen cooking certain foods, and you might be used to ordering out or going out. And sometimes the foods people eat when they're in a hurry or when they're ordering out may not be as healthy as what they could make in their own kitchen. And so part of it is not just kind of telling people, oh, here's a list of great foods, because I think anybody can do that and knows that. Everybody, has a general sense that they should probably eat more vegetables. But it's like, okay, well, how do I do that? And what are legumes and what are whole grains? And how do I incorporate those things into my diet? And what are some great, easy tricks that I could use to make this fun and taste really good. So that's kind of the key too, because if it tastes good, you're going to want to eat that way. And then it's like, wait, I don't have to order out, and you'll save money and all those other, benefits that'll come along.
Yeah, it's a really great balance of having specific recipes instead of just vague guidance, but also you said at a very basic level, like how to cook these things. Because it's one thing to just say, try quinoa or try more steel cut oats. And then if someone's like, I've only ever made oats from a packet, how do I do something with these really super crunchy ones? So yeah, your book is really accessible in terms of the different cooking techniques. And I also appreciate in the stories how you recognize that everyone's going to have different circumstances. One of the examples is someone that, isn't going to be that chef at home, but went from like eating fast food to saying, okay, what's some of the not processed, but already prepared food. And then I can add extra vegetables on top of that and end up with something balanced when I still don't have the time to cook. So I think it shows that there's definitely a path for progress, no matter what your skill level or time is, and it makes it feel doable, which I really appreciate. We want people listening here or reading to feel that this can be a source of empowerment as opposed to like one more thing to feel worried or stressed out or ashamed of.
Yeah, and I think I mean, just on my own experience, when I transitioned to plant-based eating, I found that I became much more adventurous, and my cooking skills improved significantly when I started trying different methods, because I wasn't familiar with a lot of the foods that I was cooking. And so it actually becomes kind of exciting when you can experiment with things that you haven't really either worked with before or tasted before. It's really fun.
Well, first of all these recipes have been used in classes. So we've, really taken the feedback from our women, like, what did they really love? I mean, farro, that just seems to be one, like they try food, like,
That's my
what a
favorite.
great grain, or quinoa, or what can I substitute? Or, can I use some dairy and some plant-based? So really giving them the opportunity to really see, like, well, my husband won't eat that. What can I work in? So really trying to be very flexible. One of my favorite chapters, and I want to give shout out to Angela, is I love the whole idea with her protein swap. Like, let's meet people where we are. And maybe they aren't comfortable with going totally plant-based, but can we dip our toe in the water and maybe use half as much of that ground turkey or ground chicken and substitute in some lentils or legumes and see how it tastes, try it out, And so I love that. That was her idea, to really include in that chapter, what are some sample ways you could do that? Because people really freak out. They're like, well, what am I going to eat for dinner if I don't have meat on the plate? What can I do?
Yeah.
And they're kind of freaked out about it. So I think that was such a practical idea that she came up with for the book that I really think our readers are going to enjoy.
And that section on animal products, I mean, I think it's a really good chapter, because I think that is a worry that a lot of people have if they're talking about a plant forward and they're like, I don't want to
like
go
the
vegan.
number one
Like, this is
question.
not my goal. And this is definitely not a preachy book. I appreciate that you kind of put out, what is the research that we have? What are some of the challenges? You do the same thing for dairy and, plant milks. And I feel like everything that you get is pretty balanced, and everyone's going to be able to find a path that they can feel, supported in, which I think is really good.
Yeah, that question, where do you get your protein, is like the number one question people that are plant-based get all the time. So it's really nice to have those swaps, because you realize that plants have protein, and you can actually do a really good job of getting well-balanced meals from plants.
That's right. Plenty of people and other mammals, can get plenty of protein from just eating plants. And I think that the danger too is, sometimes somebody gets this information about health, and, I had a friend, and she wasn't even trying to get pregnant, but she was like, oh, I didn't know all this information. This is such good information. I'm going to go vegan. And, she tried to, just like flip a switch and go vegan and really change her whole diet. And it didn't work for her, because she didn't have the skills and the knowledge that, she couldn't step into it and really transition. So part of this too is kind of telling people, all right, if you're interested in making a change for yourself and trying to improve some of these factors that might improve your fertility, we want you to do it over time, because we want you to be successful. So we really talk about small goals and smaller steps, and like a 6-week plan, to really talk about like building gradually over time. And by doing that, you're going to end up with a greater success at the end.
Yeah, I really liked the blueprint at the end of kind of a 6-week approach.
Yes.
And, pulling together the recipes in an order that seems really sustainable. And I also you mentioned early on, and we talked about this in multiple episodes, the windows of time for everything, that, those kind of 3 months before you're even ovulating as being important. Sperm health, we often ballpark it around the same time. So, a lot of people, I think, start making changes only after they've already kind of not had the success that they wanted to, which is still better than never doing it at all. But I think this is definitely a book where you feel like it allows you to kind of take that breath and slow down and be like, okay, I'm going to kind of focus on this piece now and kind of give myself that time so that it is a more gradual, sustainable, because it's not like this is not a crash diet 2 weeks. I'd follow this on my IVF cycle and then I go off of it in pregnancy. The idea really is all those things you mentioned, Judy, that you want to eat well for your eventual children too, so that they are not as vegetable averse as some of us are if we grew up never having anything.
So true. Some of the women, it's secondary, infertility. So they have a kiddo, they have a toddler, and I go, hey, these beans and lentils, this is all stuff you want to feed to your children, AKA this is really health. And as you can notice, there's a big theme on fiber and plant foods. But what we really tried to do is really show the evidence. We're not just making this up. Because so many women came to us and they're like, Well, I heard you're not supposed to have gluten, soy, and dairy. We're like, well, actually, those foods also have a lot of fertility boosting qualities. So if you just take them out because some influencer told you, you might be doing more harm than good. So that's why everything is referenced. And, it's a very referenced book, but we want people to feel good that we didn't just pull this out of the hat. Yes, our over 20 years of experience, but it's also, this is, we're following the science too, to support what we recommend.
So does that mean you're not going to be making a fun TikTok video about this? I wanted to see you both doing like a choreographed dance with some plants.
A dance?
Yeah.
We might.
We'll be hitting
we'll put
social media.
That's right.
We'll put it on our Instagram page.
I like that. The plant dance. We'll have to do a plant dance. That sounds good.
Like with an eggplant. And
it's interesting. Angela and I were just traveling, and both of us happened to be in Portugal. And honestly, every tour I went on, somebody would find out a food and a fertility. Okay, nobody knew what I did. You know what I mean? Like, pick the fresh, figs, sign of fertility. Or there's the fresh pomegranates. Or we go visit historical places, and there would be foods and fertility symbols. Or we'd see in Spain, I'd see the Dali Museum with eggs. I'm like, okay, I'm on vacation. But it was lovely to see that you could go anywhere in the world, and your work is really relevant. I mean, it's been around for thousands of years, of those fresh fruits and vegetables and really nurturing your health has been around forever, So we just had to go out and visit it. And Angela and I are planning on visiting every, blue zone Mediterranean country and making sure that we actually taste and try those quality foods so we can bring them back to our patients and share.
Right. That's our goal, really, is worldwide travel to
I was just going to say, that sounds like a big burden.
It does. Somebody has to do it, Ruby. No, but
right, exactly.
And that just brings on how, and it was Angela's idea to do like the global cuisine, because we've always done some South Asian and Asian and different things, and really exploring, because really every culture, when you look at its roots, is somewhat plant-based with a lot of whatever the local produce is. And those flavors and those seasonings, that's what makes our food taste so good. And the food's delicious. We found out in our classes, these women will go home and start making it, or they'll do it, they do it at home. And then they'll tell me like, oh, I still have my folder from the first Food for Fertility class 10 years ago. And I cooked those recipes because they really opened up my eyes to how great, plant-based cooking, can be. So they're fun to eat and enjoy.
Yeah, we were joking when we run out of our olive oil and our honey that we got in Greece this summer. It's like, well, then we have to go back to Greece so we can stock up again.
Yep.
But the way that we eat when we're there on vacation, they bring out like all these, like you have your side of these vegetables and you have your hummus and you have your olive oil. And then by the time they even brought out the platter of the main course, we're kind of already so full. And you're having that whole like, what you're aiming for, right? Where you actually are focusing on the food and you're slow and you're tasting it and you're enjoying it. And it's just hard because that's not something that we get in our daily life. Usually, often we're just like grabbing whatever we can, eating at our desks. Like it's a lot of things in our society right now make it very challenging to eat the way that we know at an intellectual level would not only be better for us, but more enjoyable.
And I think our lunch meetings are just standard, just eating our lunch together at noon.
Fun. We should do that.
Yeah, have the noon cooking club. It's interesting. I had a patient say to me today, she goes, I'm not eating enough of what I should have. I'm really not eating enough. Whereas people are always focused on cutting back. And she's like, wow, I barely grab a Caesar salad at lunch. I'm like, yeah, there's not much there but romaine dressing and croutons, right? What could you add to that salad? And just like brainstorming really easy things, that she could do, that felt doable. So we want to really work on where people are at and have them be able to build and include all those nutrients that will help support their fertility and healthy pregnancy.
And coming at it from kind of that chef perspective, which I've worked on, is the spices, the spice mixes, the combination to really make things delicious and beautiful.
Hmm.
So, we talk about the rainbow of colors a lot, and really each of the colors of the fruits and vegetables and everything else they're bringing different micronutrients to the front, different phytonutrients, plant-derived nutrients. Which are helping different aspects of your health and helping your gut and your microbiome and all those things. So you're visually stimulated, your taste buds are stimulated, you're smelling the food, you're taking the time if you do, so that's what we emphasize as well as that intuitive eating, mindful eating, enjoying the meal itself that maybe you have been able to put some time into preparing and then really you get much more out of the meal on so many levels.
Well, and this home prep and cooking, and most of the time, then you do end up with the leftover you could have for lunch the
Hmm.
next day too. Like it's a little bit more of that upfront time, but then it
Hmm.
can simplify your life a little bit later. I like how a lot of your recipes are kind of that scaled up, where you do feel like, yeah, it makes it attainable, and having that kind of 6-week plan makes it kind of easy to slowly step up. Like in one of yours, I think you mentioned when you shop for the week, you should get at least 7 different vegetables. It's like, I don't even know if I can name 7 vegetables. That does sound hard. But if you take 6 weeks and like if each week you're trying a new one that you haven't gotten before, then by the end, I guess I'm going to have my 7 instead of just my same bag of like the same 3 things. So.
And the flexibility with the 6 week, because we've taught this class so many times that sometimes we did it every other week. Remember, Angela?
Mm-hmm.
And people sometimes like that extra week. So we talk about the 3 months. If you want to expand it, say, you know what, I'm going to double that to 12 weeks. I'll work on one step every couple of weeks, and that feels comfortable. I think you have that flexibility. And we do talk about in the book, like, hey, this is when you need to go to a fertility clinic and have an assessment. And I feel, as you all advocate, that people don't understand enough of their own fertility. Like, how long should I wait? What is a fertility consult? When should I work with a dietitian if this disordered eating or maybe some more specific issues? So we do include that, but we thought like this is just going to be so accessible to the majority of women and their partners. That what a great first step for them and something that's easy and readable, and we're just like super excited about it. It's a capstone of our careers, right? We just kind of feel like
it's wonderful.
For sure.
a way to reach a lot
Very
of people.
exciting.
It is going to reach a lot of people and help a lot of people.
Is there anything you wanted to include in the book that you just had to not put in because it was going too much up on a tangent?
Oh.
Yes.
Oh,
Well, yeah.
Apparently, yes.
The first draft. No, I mean the first draft. There's so much we wanted to share,
Yes.
and just too much, really, right? So, the first draft was just too long, and so we had to, working with our editors, who really encouraged us to pull it back. We wanted to include more recipes and just,
Oh.
more stories and more detail, things like talking about epigenetics and how important that is. It just, there really wasn't enough. We couldn't include everything we
You
wanted
gotta
to
have the
include.
sequel. That's fine.
I was just going to say, I
The
hear a part
sequel,
2.
the cookbook. Yeah, we would have loved to have done like, more recipes. Recipes take up a lot of room in meal plans. So we put the highlights. But Ben Bella is such an amazing publisher that they really have a good eye for like, okay, this is how much the public will read. Do you know what I mean? Like this many words is a sweet spot. So they really helped us look at it from the reader's standpoint. And going through all the copy edits, Angela, we're probably happy now it's not any longer. But we worked on the individual chapters, and when you put it all together, it's like, wow, are we over? But
It's like a 10-volume set that takes
it
up
could
your
have
whole
been.
bookshelf.
It could have been.
Yeah.
But stay tuned, right?
But it's so much work and such an accomplishment.
Definitely. Are the recipes going to have photos? Like, is it going to show the beautiful rainbow or?
Not
In this one, no.
version.
That's
no.
hard. Yeah.
This one will, I mean, this one is just going to be, a really basic, less expensive,
Yes.
paperback only,
Okay.
book. I think,
Oh, cool. Yeah.
if later we end up doing a companion cookbook, I think that would be something that would probably have pictures.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we're hoping to do a lot of social media posts where, we'll be cooking, we'll be featuring a recipe, and there we do have a book website that will be launched very soon. Probably by the time your listeners hear this, they'll be able to pre-order it at any major bookseller. And then with our website, we'll be able to feature some fun things too.
That's good. That's one of those other things that I, never thought about doing until COVID, this idea of like an online cooking class. And then we did a few, and it's so fun. Like it's kind of, it's more interesting than you think it would be to feel like you're still part of that. But like you said, you're doing it in your own kitchen. So it's actually something you're going to be able to recreate later, as opposed to if you just like go into a class somewhere, then it can feel like that was just a fun one-time experience. So I think that's great.
That part was fun because remember, Angela, sometimes people would be like, oh my gosh, I forgot this ingredient. We're like, well, what else do you have?
Yeah.
And they'd open their fridge or their cupboard. We talk about, oh, this happens all the time. What can I improvise?
Totally.
So it was kind of like real life, where sometimes somebody just step out of order. We're like, that's okay, So it was very real life. And also that everybody cooks at a different speed. And so we would record them, and some of the women would go, just take your time, get as far as you can for new chefs. So that's where you do have video can be nice too.
Yeah, when I cook, I can't have my husband be my sous chef because he's too like engineer. He wants to like cut everything perfectly. And I'm like, I needed this like, just the onions, they're going to cook down. It doesn't matter. Just chop them and dump them in. So yes, we have different philosophies about perfection and progress and what's needed when it comes to chopping things.
I think there's different people have different cooking styles, right? Some people really like to follow a recipe and do it perfectly and have all those ingredients.
If he's missing one ingredient, he won't do it. He's like, oh, I gotta go buy that. I was like, you can just use this. He's like, that's not what the recipe says. So
right. And other people are definitely more fluid, right? So like, you learn skills, you learn basics, you learn some basic components, and then you can become a more intuitive cook, which is, really an easier way to function if you can kind of be like, okay, what do I have in the pantry? What do I have in my fridge? Or I'm at the farmer's market, or I'm at the grocery. What looks good here today? Let me grab 5 things and go home and make dinner. So that's just kind of once you have enough skills, I think that becomes an easier way to prepare your meals and think about it instead of being kind of having to be fixated on a specific because recipe. A lot of people don't have a certain spice, or a certain vegetable might not be in season, and it's like, okay, well, what would substitute for that? I mean, there's always substitutes. Cooking is so much easier and more fluid than baking. Baking is much more precise, but cooking is like, what do you have? We can work with that. So that's why I love cooking too.
That's great. Well, I know you mentioned keeping the cost low with the paper bag. I think that's the other funny thing. You think about the cost of the book or investing a little bit in like quality food products, and it's so minimal compared to someone buying a supplement they saw advertised or some of all the other things we did. Like I think back on like early on in my treatment cycles, the fact that I went and saw a hypnotist, I was like, that's pretty crazy. But I was like, well, I feel like if that will help, I will pay someone to like sit there and talk me through it. It's like, this is something that is in the scheme of things, not only low cost, but will really make you feel better in and above the benefits that you lay out pretty clearly in the book in terms of that fertility. This is something that really you can feel changes after just a few weeks, which is nice too. So
I'd say even before that. I mean, honestly, I think that you can start feeling more energy really quickly and sleeping better. And, if you're reducing some of the simple carbohydrates or excess sugar or things like that, it can have a pretty immediate effect on a lot of your metabolism and all those other things. So I think that part is great, but it's not, I wouldn't say it's easy. People have to really be motivated and think about it and decide if it's, if they want to invest in it and make some. And again, it's like Judy said too, it's not like you have to be all in on this. You can dabble. You can dabble. I'll make a couple of these changes. That sounds good. And like maybe not the rest, so that's what we want, is for people to take what they can. And if other things don't appeal to them, then that's fine. The other thing that's great is that what we really describe is, being on a plant forward or, plant focused diet that's not exclusively plants, but this kind of eating pattern really can sustain you for the rest of your life. So it really isn't just about fertility or pregnancy or postpartum. It's really about it. A lot of this data, which we also didn't have time to go into in the book, but it decreases cardiovascular disease, decreases diabetes, hypertension, liver function, elevated liver enzymes, certain cancers, increases longevity. I mean, the list of benefits goes on and on. So, there's a lot of other potential future motivation for people beyond just, but I think most people that, we're seeing and talking to are, focused on pregnancy, but many, many long-term benefits as well.
Yeah, if you're making your body the healthiest place to maybe grow pregnancy, you're also just making it the healthiest place overall, which is good, even when you're not trying to do anything else there. So
yeah,
that's what we said. There's no bad side effects of eating healthier and feeling better. It's going to help people where they're at any age. Because a lot of people come to see me, they're like ready to do their last transfer and they're 43. Mm-hmm. I'm like, okay, well, we could talk about your health and preparation for hopefully pregnancy, but just your health. We think that that's, really important and really key. And just, I hope that people will find the stories hopeful, that they'll find that a lot of people have been in some pretty tough places. Some of them we had in our earlier, even in our later classes, when they used to come on Saturday mornings, they never ate during the day. They just weren't hungry. And then they started eating because we were cooking at 10 in the morning and they were eating vegetables and quinoa. And slowly by the end of the 6-week classes, when we said, well, what did you like about the class? They go, well, I started eating, I got my period. And then like a whole bunch of people from that class ended up not having to do IVF because they got pregnant on their own. And it's like, had they not taken that class, and done the cooking and the lifestyle change, that might not have happened. So we really want to give people hope for their best chances of starting their families when they're
wonderful.
ready.
So tell us again the title, how people can go on and pre-order.
It's Getting to Baby, a Food-First Fertility Plan to improve your odds and shorten your time to pregnancy. It's pre-launching in October of 2023, and it will be out in the bookstores April of 2024. So we're hoping that get in on those early pre-orders. You always get a nicer price. And we'll have our website up hopefully by the time your podcast is out.
Yeah, the website is gettingtobabybook.com. So that'll have the information, but it'll be available on all the major booksellers.
Perfect.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. We're excited to get our pre-order copy.
Yeah, we get a complimentary copy too, right? Once it's all bound.
You both absolutely have copies coming.
Thank you both so much. Congratulations on getting this done. And we've seen this over the last decade too. It's a huge accomplishment for it to be. You must have felt so good having the drafts kind of wrapped up. So it's a great resource. I think it's going to help so many people.
Thank you guys so much. It's really great to talk to you.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for joining us for this week's episode of the Whole Pineapple Podcast. We hope it was helpful.
If you know someone who could benefit from hearing the podcast, we hope you'll share it with them.
And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review The Whole Pineapple on your favorite podcast app. Every rating and review makes us easier to find.
This podcast is sponsored by Seattle Reproductive Medicine and is produced by Audiotocracy Podcast Production. We'll see you next time. Have a delicious week.